Good morning, everybody. It's May. Welcome to May. Wow, how did that happen? Wasn't it just January? It seemed like it was just January. All right, today I'm talking about the courage for discovery. And this month, our theme is creating a life of magic. Big magic. Something like this. There was once a magician who lived on a cruise ship and performed mainly sleight hand tricks, sleight of hand tricks. He had a regular spot on the ship's cabaret evening entertainment, and he was actually very good. He was quite a good magician, but he had one big problem. His routines were regularly ruined by the onboard parrot who would fly around squawking and giving away his secrets, saying things like, "It's up his sleeve, it's up his sleeve," or "It's in his pocket, it's in his pocket," or "It's in his mouth, it's in his mouth." Well, you have to know, the magician was getting pretty sick of this, and he threatened to do some physical harm to the parrot if it ruined his act one more time. Then one evening, as the magician was about to disappear in a puff of smoke for his grand finale, the ship hit an iceberg and it sank in seconds. Amazingly, the magician and the parrot were the only two survivors. The magician was lying on a piece of driftwood just in a daze, and as he opened his eyes, he could see the parrot staring out at him with his one beady little eye. The parrot sat there for what seemed like an eternity, just staring at him, the wheels of his little brain turning and turning. Eventually he said, "Okay, you got me this time. What did you do with the ship?" Okay, not that kind of big magic. That's not what we're doing this month. But good. Yeah, we always like that. But big magic nonetheless, as we use the brilliance of Elizabeth Gilbert's most recent book, Big Magic, Creating Life Beyond Fear. Elizabeth Gilbert, who also wrote Eat, Pray, Love. Many of you will recognize her from that. So we're going to use this book, and it's here if you want to take a look at it. Big Magic, Creative Living Beyond Fear, to explore the attitudes, approaches, and habits needed to uncover our hidden treasures, face our fears, and trust the universe. All of which lead us to our most creative, magical lives. The lives that God intended us to live. So early on in Big Magic, Gilbert poses a very important question, and it's a question that we will explore this morning. From Big Magic, she writes, "So this, I believe, is the central question upon which all creative living hinges. Do you have the courage to bring forth the treasures that are hidden with you?" Look, I don't know what's hidden within you. I have no way of knowing such a thing. You yourself may barely know. Although I suspect you've caught glimpses. I don't know your capacities, your aspirations, your longings, your secret talents, but surely something wonderful is sheltered within you. I say this with all confidence because I happen to believe that we are all walking repositories of buried treasure. I believe this is one of the oldest and most generous tricks the universe plays on us human beings, both for its own amusement and for ours. The universe buries strange jewels deep within us and then stands back to see if we can find them. Oh, a little hide and go seek there, right? I like the idea of maybe a playful universe, I kind of like that. The sentiment is consistent with the ancient Hindu story, and I have shared this story before, of the Creator and the angels discussing where to hide man's divinity. One angel said to put it at the bottom of the ocean. They will never find it there. God said, "No, humans are very smart. Someday they will find their way to the bottom of the ocean." Another angel said, "Then put it at the center of the earth." God said, "I suspect one day man will find his way there too. We need a more obscure spot." Another angel suggested the top of the highest mountain, but God felt sure that man would find it there as well. Finally, an angel said, "I've got it. Let's put it in a place that they won't think to look, right inside them." The treasure we are about to unbury is the unique way in which our divinity is expressed. So back to Elizabeth Gilbert's passage. She says, "The universe buries strange jewels deep within us all, and then stands back to see if we can find them. The hunt to uncover those jewels, the courage to go on that hunt in the first place, that's creative living. That's what separates a mundane existence from a more enchanted one. The often surprising results of that hunt, that's what I call big magic." So So now let's be clear about something right up front this month, because I don't want to spend, I don't want 3/4 of you to tune me out thinking that I'm not talking about you. When I say creative living, we are not talking exclusively about pursuing a life as a poet or an artist or a musician, although that could be one of the hidden treasures within you, and that is wonderful. But rather, creative living, in the context of our conversations this month, is about living a life, living a life that's more driven, that is driven more strongly by curiosity than by fear, a life which brings you, or which you bring forth from you, that which brings you joy and fulfillment, which in turn blesses the world, because there's no such thing as private good, right? When someone is doing well, everyone gets to experience that. Didn't we all feel great hearing Claudia's story? You lifted us all up with that. We all felt just a little bit richer this morning. So it can't help but affect everyone.
Yeah,
So,
I can't wait for my excerpt. I'm going to take it for lunch.
So let me say that again. Creative living in the context of our conversations this month isn't about artistic endeavors. Rather, it's about living a life that is driven more strongly by curiosity than by fear. And I would suspect that curiosity brought a lot of us to this teaching, right? And a life, number 2, a life in which you bring forth from you that which brings you joy and fulfillment, which in turn blesses the world. So even if you aren't an artist or a singer or a writer or an actor or whatever you want, fill the blank, that you think are your creative endeavors, this month is for you. So everybody on the same page? All right. So in her book, Gilbert gives us an example of her friend Susan, who took up figure skating when she was, gasp, the age of 40. Oh my. Well, she actually already knew how to figure skate. She had figure skated competitively as a child, and she loved it. But she quit the sport when it became clear that she didn't have the chops to be a champion. Isn't that sad? You know, something she loved, but she didn't think she could do what was expected of her, perhaps. For the next quarter of a century, she didn't skate. Her thinking was, why bother if you can't be the best? Whoa. Then she turned 40. Those milestone birthdays, well, they can mess with our heads, can't they? Whew. She was listless, unsettled, out of sorts. She did a little soul searching, a little meditation, right? And asked herself, when was the last time that she felt truly light and joyous and even creative? To her amazement, she realized the last time she remembered experiencing those feelings was when she was figure skating. And even though she was saddened that she hadn't felt that way in a long time, she was curious to know if skating would still give her those really cool feelings. And again, what is the definition of creative living in the context of this month? Living a life that is driven more strongly by curiosity than fear, and a life in which you bring forth from you that which brings you joy and fulfillment, which in turn blesses the world. So she followed her curiosity to see if that which at one time brought her joy and fulfillment would again. She bought a pair of skates, found a rink, and she hired a coach. She ignored the voice within her that told her she was being self-indulgent and preposterous to do such a crazy thing. We all have these voices, these outside things telling us what we think we ought to be doing, right? After all, the voice said, "You are 40 years old, you know." She acknowledged that voice and then ignored herself, her extreme self-consciousness at being the only middle-aged woman on the ice skate with all those teeny, feathery 9-year-old girls. She just did it. 3 mornings a week, she got up before dawn, before her demanding job began, and she skated. She skated just for the sake of joy and freedom and the fulfillment that she felt when she skated. She skated just because it made her feel alive. About her friend's experience, Gilbert writes, "It was a revolution, a literal revolution, as she spun to life again on the ice. Revolution upon revolution upon revolution." Please note that my friend did not quit her job. She did not sell her home. She did not sever all of her relationships and move to Toronto to study 70 hours a week with an exacting Olympic level skating coach. And no, the story does not end with her winning any championship medals. In fact, the story does not end at all because Susan is still figure skating several mornings a week, simply because skating is still the best way for her to unfold a certain beauty and transcendence within her life that she cannot seem to access in any other manner. And she would like to spend as much time as possible in such a state of transcendence while she is still here on earth. That's all. That's what I call creative living. Isn't that beautiful? It's just such a beautiful story. So the question of the morning is, what treasure is buried in you? What treasure is buried in you? There is one thing you should know about uncovering it and going for it. It can be scary. In fact, it can be very scary because living creatively means living into the unknown. And moving into the unknown can be scary. Here are some ways that here are some of the many ways in which we might be afraid to uncover our buried treasure. See if any of them ring true for you. You are afraid that you won't be any good at what you're doing, whatever it is that is nudging you. Like, I would love to, maybe try to build a piece of furniture, maybe an outdoor table, but what if I can't do it? What if it looks awful? I don't know. You're afraid you'll be rejected or criticized or ridiculed or misunderstood or, worst of all, ignored. Nobody sees this amazing thing you've done, and wow. You're afraid there's no market for whatever it is that you're offering, and therefore no point in pursuing it. You're afraid somebody else already did it and they did it better. You're afraid everybody else already did it better. You're afraid somebody will steal your ideas, so it's safer to keep them hidden forever in the dark. You're afraid you won't be taken seriously. You're afraid your dreams are embarrassing. You're afraid that someday you'll look back on your endeavors as having been a giant waste of time, effort, and money. You're afraid you don't have the right kind of discipline. Well, I could get up maybe one morning and do this, but every morning early? You're afraid you don't have the right kind of work ethic. You're afraid that you are too fat. About this, Gilbert writes, I don't know what this has to do with creativity exactly, but my experience has taught me that most of us are afraid that we're too fat. So let's just put that one on the anxiety list for good measure. You are afraid you will fail. You are afraid of what your peers and coworkers will say if you express your personal truth out loud. Ooh. You're afraid of upsetting your family with what you may reveal. You're afraid your best work is behind you. You're afraid you never had any best work to begin with. You're afraid you've neglected the treasure buried within you for so long that now you can never find it. You're afraid you're too old to start. You're afraid you're too young to start. You're afraid because something went well in your life once. So obviously nothing can ever go well again. You got your one, you're done, right? You're afraid that because nothing has ever gone well in your life, why bother trying? You're afraid of being a one-hit wonder. You're afraid of being a no-hit wonder. Okay, well, because we don't have all day here, I'm going to stop listening. I'm going to quit listing all of these fears. But it is a bit bottomless pit, isn't it? It can go on and forever. We can just summarize it by saying that living creatively, finding your buried treasure, can be scary, scary, scary. But here's a really important thought. Our fear is really boring. It never changes. It never delights, never offers a surprise twist or an unexpected ending. Fear is a song with only one note, only one word actually, repeated at full volume on an endless loop. Stop. Stop. We are all equipped with the same basic fear package. There's nothing interesting or compelling or original about it. On the other hand, we each have creativity within us that is original. We each have a personality that is original. We each, because God didn't make two of anything, right? We each have dreams and perspectives and aspirations within us that are original. But our fears are not original in the least. Gilbert asks, do we really want to build our lives around the most boring instinct that we have? Wow. This doesn't mean that your fear will go away. Bravery means doing something that's scary. It means feeling the fear and doing it anyway. The truth is, we need our fear Nature set it up that way so that we could react appropriately to being attacked by a saber-toothed tiger. And when was the last time that happened, right? We need fear in order to protect us from actual danger. We teach our children, don't run into the street. Be afraid of those huge cars and things that aren't good for them. But we do not need fear in the realm of living creatively. Ernest Holmes writes in Creative Minded Success, fear brings failure. It's just that simple. Fear brings failure. Just because you don't need fear doesn't mean it won't show up, especially when you're trying something new. Your fear will always be triggered by your new endeavors, whatever they may look like. Gilbert suggests that because fear will be your companion on this road trip of creating big magic in your life, you need to build some space for it. She writes, "It isn't always easy or comfortable being on this road trip with fear, but it is always worth it because if you can't learn to travel comfortably alongside fear, then you'll never be able to go anywhere interesting or do anything interesting. And that would be a pity because your life is short and rare and amazing and miraculous, and you really do want to do interesting things and make really interesting things while you're still here. And you have treasures hidden within you, extraordinary treasures, and bringing those treasures to light takes work and faith and focus and courage and devotion, and the clock is ticking and the world is spinning, and we simply do not have time anymore to think so small. We simply do not have time to do that. So what do we do when we are faced with fear? Faced with the fear of even trying to discover our buried treasure? Well, Ernest Holmes offers us a great suggestion, and so does Gilbert. Holmes says, "Let us fill ourselves with such courage and power of strength that all thought of weakness, I'll add in fear, flees before us. If any thought of weakness or fear should come, ask this question, is life weak or fearful? And if God is not discouraged, then you are not. Never were and never will be." I should like to see the sickly discouraged thought that could withstand this attitude of mind. No, life is strong, and you are strong with the strength of the infinite. Forget all else as you revel in the strength. You are strong and can say, "I am." You have been laboring under an illusion. Now you are disillusioned. Now you know, and knowing is using the law in a constructive way. I and my Father are one. This is strength for the weak and fearful, and life for all who believe. Holmes is telling us here to remember who we are. Remember who we are. Gilbert offers us some wisdom in the form of a conversation she has with fear every time she begins something new. It goes something like this, and I'll tell you, if you read Eat, Pray, Love, oh my goodness, all of those situations, so unknown and so different. I know I would have felt fear going into them, but what a life-expanding experiences she had, many of them. But she writes, "Dearest Fear, creativity and I are about to go on a road trip together. I understand you'll be joining us because you always do. I acknowledge that you believe you have an important job to do in my life and that you take your job seriously. Apparently, your job is to induce complete panic whenever I'm about to do anything interesting. And, may I say, you are superb at your job. So by all means, keep doing your job if you feel you must. But I will also be doing my job on this road trip, which is to bring faith and focus and courage and devotion to all my work. And creativity will be doing its job, which is to remain stimulating and inspiring. There's plenty of room in this vehicle for all of us. So make yourself at home, but understand this. Creativity and I are the only ones who will be making any decisions along the way. I recognize and respect that you are part of this family, and so I will never exclude you from our activities, but still, your suggestions will never be followed. You're allowed to have a seat, and you're allowed to have a voice, but you are not allowed to have a vote. You're not allowed to touch the road maps, you're not allowed to suggest detours, you're not allowed to fiddle with the temperature. Dude, you're not even allowed to touch the radio. But above all else, my dear old familiar friend, you are absolutely forbidden to drive." I like that. Remember, you have treasures hidden within you, extraordinary treasures. Bringing those treasures to light is what you came here to do. And the clock is ticking and the world is spinning. You simply do not have time anymore to think small. It is what God in you, as you, is you, wants for you. I'm affirming and knowing that and believing that. I'm believing that you have the courage not only to discover, but to express your buried treasure. And so it is.